Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So I want to talk about mental and emotional pain because look, in this world, we suffer a lot on a mental level. Obviously, there's sickness in body, there's heart disease, cancer, and things of the physical, things that are a physical manifestation of disease and wrongdoings to the body and abuse to the body, due to bad habits. But I would say that most people, if you ask them, what is the number one cause of your suffering, they'll say it's mental or emotional. I promise you. And oftentimes, what is our emotional and mental pain? Where is it stemming from? Well, typically it stems from what? The ego. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about other reasons why you may be experiencing, pain in the sense of overthinking or frustration or anger. Due to maybe family members or relationships with other people. And this is kind of more like a self-inflicted pain that I'm talking about, that is due to our own habits. And so the ego is our self-construct, right? Typically we know ourselves through our mind and who we are and what we think we need. We think we need food, we think we need entertainment, we think we need information, we think we need a great house and good money. And look, I'm not a non-materialist. This isn't to say that I'm against material things, but our identity is so shaped around these physical material wants, needs, and desires that we place all of our emphasis on how our lives are and how good our lives are based on if we're making a lot of money, if we have a great job, if we have a good house, if we have a good relationship, or if we're dating an attractive spouse or partner. And when we base our identity solely on these things and we forget our true nature, which is connection to God, the source, when we forget that and we do things that are antithetical to getting closer to God, to getting closer to stillness, to getting closer to peace, that is when the suffering is at its peak and we feel the most amount of pain. Let me kind of illustrate this. So when you're wanting something, whether it's food, whether it's stimulation, whether it's maybe like going to apply for a new job, going out and talking to members of the opposite sex to get laid, whenever you're desiring things of this world, or whenever you're going to look for a house that you want to buy or a stock you want to trade, whenever you're looking at these things, right, we typically want a result. If I trade a stock, I want to make money. If I go out and talk to a girl, I want to get laid. If I'm watching pornography and I want to release, I want to orgasm and feel good. If I'm hungry, I want to eat and feel pleasure and feel satiated. And so look, all of these things, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously in their extreme form, there is a cause of, pain is the cause in the extreme form. But basically when we seek these things and we get the result, the problem is the result is very temporary. Meaning you get a result, right? Let's say you make a lot of money. I made $300 trading today. Great, you made that money, right? Like a lot of people who day trade, it's a great example. Like you make $1,000 in 10 minutes or 15 minutes or a half hour. So you feel good, right? You're like, damn, I made a lot of money. And everyone would want that, right? You make $1,000 in 20 or 30 minutes, shit, that you probably feeling pretty good, right? I can guarantee you the next day, you're gonna feel like you need to make more money. Even though you just made $1,000, you just made half of a month of rent in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. But you still feel that there's a need, there's an emptiness, there's a lack of some sort. There's some part of you that isn't fulfilled, that doesn't feel whole, complete, or at least good enough to not feel like you need to go do something in that moment and do it again. Now, again, in the case that I'm using in this example or illustration, money is not bad, right? So pursuing money is not a bad thing. The problem is when we don't have anything else in life that gives us satisfaction, that gives us purpose, meaning, peace, joy, stillness, and love and strength. And so we find ourselves in this constant state of needing stuff from day to day, right? Whether it's scrolling on the phone, jumping from one app to the other, looking for some form of entertainment to keep our minds off of ourselves, going to eat something, grab something to eat, to also do the same thing and distract ourselves. And so we get so absorbed in the material world that nothing else, we don't think that anything else can satiate us. And this is what causes our fear. This is what causes our physical disease. This is what causes, constant feeling that I need something to make me feel better. I feel like shit, right? I feel like I don't have joy. I don't have love. I don't have anything inside of me that resembles goodness, that resembles, contentment. And when that is our state constantly, there's no wonder why we suffer, why we experience pain, why we experience, constantly feeling like life's up against us and that, we're never satisfied. And so what is the cure to this? Well, saints and mystics have prescribed many different practices. And I think it's worth mentioning because a lot of us, right, again, we get so caught up in the material aspects of existence that we don't even realize, some of us don't even realize that there's spiritual practices that can help us achieve better levels of joy, satisfaction, peace, love, contentment. We have no idea why, because we weren't told that. Think about it. When you grew up, I can guarantee there's probably zero of you watching this video that experienced this. Did you grow up in a household that valued meditation, silence, prayer, gratitude, fasting? Did you grow up in an environment that pushed that over you getting a good job, getting a house, getting a attractive spouse? Probably not. So we're not taught how to align ourselves with the spirit world and with the Holy Spirit, if that's, whatever terminology you want to use as God. We're not taught how to move closer to God. And so the problem is that we don't even have a roadmap. And when we don't have a roadmap, we just think that the physical world is our salvation, is our way to heaven, is our way to goodness. And although those things feel good in the moment, they don't give you steady levels of contentment and joy. Again, what happens when you eat tasty food? It's very short-lived. So spiritual practices are designed to not be short-lived, to be sort of everlasting. And so, for example, when you fast, if you guys have ever fasted, I'm not sure if you have, but you experience joy. You experience, well, obviously in the beginning, if you haven't done it, it's a little painful because you haven't gone through the process and your body's probably dealing with a bunch of toxins and things of that sort if you've never done it. But once you get good at it, in the sense of you've done it a few times, you start to feel good after doing it, because now your body is cleaner, right? And on top of that, when you remove food for an extended period of time, your mind your thoughts aren't racing as fast. You still have thoughts, and we can't escape thinking, but the pace at which your thoughts are hitting your mind is slower. So you're in a more state of peace. Because let's face it, when you guys experience the most pain, it's typically due to what? A constant want for something, your mind constantly telling you that you need to go do something, constant negative thoughts surrounding your job not being good enough, or you not having enough money, you not having this, you not having that. And that constant experience is what causes our depression. It's what causes our disease. It's what causes us, the anxiety we experience. So when you fast, just using this as an example, you rid yourself of that pain to some degree. It's not going to completely absolve you from your mind, but it's going to reduce the amount of pain caused by incessant thinking, negative thinking, and a monkey mind, where your thoughts are all over the place and you have no control over your state of being. So that's like kind of, fasting in a nutshell. And look, if you work a job where you know, like let's say you want to start fasting, you don't have to do crazy, you know, 1 meal a day or, you know, 2, 3, 4 days of fasting. You can work your way into it, and as you work your way into it, you'll get better, right? So let's say you want to start fasting. Well, okay, you start eating at 12. If you've been eating breakfast your whole life, you start eating at 12. Once you start eating at 12, right, you do that for a little while, maybe 3 days a week if you don't want to do it every day, which is totally fine. Next thing you know, you don't feel like you need to eat, and you're in a better state of consciousness. You're in a more better, you're in a state of peace. You didn't get a better job, you didn't make more money, you didn't bang a bunch of girls, you didn't, you know, experience a nice vacation, or, you know, whatever thing that the ego wants. You didn't experience that, but you feel better. Why? Because the ego mind that causes the suffering is reduced in that, you know, 12-hour window where you don't eat. So fasting is, I think, paramount, especially also if you're dealing with an addiction. An addiction, whether it could be pornography or food, typically, you know, the ego, the things the ego craves that we feed into, almost all the time become addictions, right? Because they're so short-lived, and we don't have any other way to feel good in life outside of those physical indulgences, that those things just become what we go to feel good when we feel lousy or dissatisfied, or, you know, in a negative thinking, in a state of negative thinking. And so that's fasting kind of in a nutshell, and I think it's very pertinent and important that we start adopting it, obviously in small degrees. You can't just become a master at the practice right away, but you can work your way into it. And once you also start putting better foods into your body, it's not to say you're going to be perfect. It's not to say you won't backslide or have ego backlash, but it's to say that it'll be easier now, because the more high quality foods you put into your body in your feeding window, now you actually get good nutrients. You have better thoughts and emotions because your body is actually processing high quality foods that give your body life, that nourish your organs, that nourishes your brain, that nourishes your bones and your eyes and your ears. And so start by fasting. It's foundational to every other spiritual practice. And so let's dive in also to meditation and prayer. I kind of combine these two. They're different in some degree, but they point at the same thing, and I want to really make it a known, something that you guys should, you know, glean some interest in. So what is meditation? I think meditation is a good practice for a lot of people. If you're not Christian or Catholic, right, prayer is something a lot of Christians and Catholics do. Some other religions also pray, like Muslims and stuff like that, Islam. But meditation, I think, is something all of us can do, right? If you're not into prayer, you don't really know prayer, meditation is something very simple. And so it's very simple. You just sit and breathe, right? I can do about 15 to 20 minutes a day, especially, you know, if I'm working. I don't really, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not great at meditation. I'm not great at sitting there observing my mind, and my body starts to get antsy after a while. But in a state of meditation, right, I'm still, my mind is a little quieter. And so I'm away from sound, I'm away from music. I'm in my house typically. I don't have any electronics playing. I don't have a fan playing. It's just silence. And when you're in that state, just slowly breathing, you get closer to God. Now, you don't become enlightened by just meditating one day, but in that state where you're doing the breath work and you're sitting there observing your mind and observing your body, in those moments, you are closer to God, and you are getting more satisfaction, right? It's not the pleasure the spiritual joy you get from sitting there in meditation. It's not the same as when you eat a piece of chocolate. It's not the same. It's definitely not. But what it does do is it quiets your mind so that there's not a lot of desire, right? And when there's not a lot of desire, or the desire is quieter, right? It's not screaming at you, and it's not like pulling you away from your core, from your center. That's when you can sort of feel that peace and contentment. And even if it's short-lived, right? If you practice this every day, even if it's just 10 minutes, right? I can guarantee you guys, I know it's hard, but if you really want to ascend in life in a spiritual way, and guys, by the way, there is really no, it's hard to experience a good life without some form of spirituality. I know I talk a lot about on this channel about money and jobs and careers and investing and financial freedom. I'm obviously big on that because financial freedom is it's going to be the foundation for you being able to fully dive into the spiritual life. But to say that we pursue money, we pursue finances over everything else, including, you know, fasting, meditation, prayer, contemplation, and just being in silence and solitude, is a disservice. I'm doing a disservice by just saying that that's the only thing worth pursuing at the expense of some form of a spiritual life. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a saint, but you have to try, right? Because even in your little efforts, though they may be small, though you may think they're small and they're not grandiose, and it's like, you know, because in the Bible it's like Jesus fasted for 40 days, or like some of the saints like Saint Anthony and Saint Basil and these Catholic saints and priests, like they would do 1 meal a day and they just lived on bread and salt and water, right? Like, even though you're not doing, or they would pray for like hours a day, even though you're not doing it to that extreme, the act of you doing it every day, even if it's a little bit, right? Even if it's you just say, you know what, I'm gonna only eat till 12 3 days a week, and I'm gonna, you know, in the nighttime when I get off work, or in the evening or the afternoon, whenever I get off, whenever I have some time, I'm gonna meditate for 10 to 15 minutes. So even if you just do that, right, you'll notice that you're not gonna suffer as much. We're all gonna experience things in our mind we don't want to experience, right? That's part of purification. That's part of things coming out, especially when you're fasting, right? You may have emotions come up that are uncomfortable, things in your past that you were like, damn, I wish I didn't do that, and you don't feel good about it. But those moments pass, and once you deal with those things and those emotions that come up to the surface, they go away. They don't haunt you as much. They don't feel as bad. Even if you have a thought of the incident that wasn't good, it's not going to affect you as much as it would if you shove it down with food, with your phone, with comfort, with pursuing money, pursuing all these other things. And so look, meditation, right, will be huge for you. It will be huge. It's not going to solve all of your issues, but the whole theme of the whole theme and big picture here is that with fasting, with meditation, with saying no, you gain a greater control over your physical body. And the physical body and your ego mind, right, they just want to consume things that feel good. And once you can kind of rightly order that, not completely eliminate them, but once you can rightly order it to where to some degree your spirit and your soul are in the driver's seat and not your body, and not your need for entertainment and things of this world, and sort of like your survival needs, once those things are kind of like rightly ordered, you experience less suffering. You experience it less, because now you're not bloated from eating too much. You're not tired from draining your seed, if you're a man, from watching porn. You're not mentally fatigued and sort of like overinflated with a whole bunch of different ideas from scrolling your phone, and anxieties and, you know, fear porn and all these other things in the news. You're not inflated with that fear, right? You're more in tune with yourself, your true nature, the contentment, bliss, and joy that is within all of us that we can directly experience, right? And so I want to make this video because, again, it's important for me. I think I'm doing a great disservice to you guys if I don't mention some aspects of spiritual life and pursuing it, because like I mentioned earlier, you can pursue money all you want, right? And look, I pursue money, I trade, I work extra hours, I'm in the world in that sense, right? Because I got to pay bills. So I'm in the world as much as everyone else. But the thing is I can't sit here and say that pursuing the worldly things like money at the expense of the spiritual life is going to help you, right? Having a good financial life is good in the sense it gives you a stable, it gives you a peace of a mind in the sense of, okay, I'm good. Like I'm not gonna be on the street. I'm not gonna be homeless. I'm not gonna be like stressed out all the time because I can't pay my bills. But once your bills are paid, guys, money has very and obviously it can, at some point, if you have a lot of money, you can obviously scale back your 9 to 5 and quit, and then have as much free time as you want. And in that sense, it's helpful. But to the degree that you pursue money and not some form of spirituality, right? Like you might just be able to fast. You might not have time to meditate. That's fine. Or you might not want to fast, but you can do some breathing and some mindfulness work at the end of each day for 10 or 15 minutes, right? And quiet your mind. That's fine. Doesn't have to be all or none, right? You don't have to do all the spiritual practices all the time to be spiritual or to experience the benefits of pursuing a spiritual life. That's not how it's supposed I mean, it can be that way if you're really, really serious about it, but the little efforts that you make each day, that's the goal. When you're not, guys, I've experienced phases of my life where I did nothing spiritual. It was all about money. It was all about food, enjoyment, relaxation, decompressing, sometimes even drinking, sometimes even pornography. And those, I can think back, those were the times of my life where I was the most miserable, right? And so the things that we think are going to give us a good quality of life, right? They will to some degree. Like you can't, eating food in its rightly ordered fashion, right, will give you a good quality of life because you're not over bloated, you're not overfed, you have just enough, right? Pursuing money and having a lot of money will increase the quality of your life because you won't have to deal with stress and the things that are bad that we don't like in a job. But without the spirit, without God, without any connection to the source, we have nothing. We just have a constant search and a constant high and a constant low, and a constant high and a constant low. That's what pursuing worldly things does. It gives you immediate satisfaction followed by a steep dissatisfaction. And then you just keep needing those things again and again and again. And we never get to a state of contentment, peace, and joy. They're false ways to satisfy ourselves, right? We're satisfying our body, but we're not satisfying our souls. And so the aim of this video is for you guys to aim towards satisfying your soul, right? And getting closer to God. That is what all of life is essentially doing. Everyone, no matter what people say, every person on this planet is trying to move closer to God, right? Trying to move closer to love. And so people do it through means that are not effective, like the things I've talked about here from a physical, worldly standpoint. And you can move towards God in the right fashioned way, right? Through prayer, through meditation, through fasting, through saying no to things that harm your body, through saying no to pornography, saying no to bad food, saying no to vices. And as you get better, right, you start to feel better just without anything. You didn't make a whole bunch of money. You didn't eat some good food. You didn't bang a hot chick. You didn't get a new house, right? You didn't get your $3,000 passive income, but you feel like happier and in a more graceful, blissful state than most people who may have $1 million or may have, a bunch of hot women. And so that is what I think a lot of us need. I know that's something that I've been working into my life as of late because I'll be very transparent, working, right, and pursuing business and pursuing money and pursuing things of this world, right? There's not an issue with it. I'm not gonna sit here and say there's something wrong with money and pursuing it. But when we're so absorbed in the result of having the money and we lose sight of ourselves, and we lose ourselves in money, and we forget God, we forget presence, we forget stillness, we forget solitude, and we forget detachment from the worldly, getting like results, being like outcome dependent. When we get lost in that, that's where your suffering comes in. That's where your mental pain comes in. That's where your constant dissatisfaction. You're like, shit, my life sucks. I don't have the money I want. I don't have the business I want. I don't have the girl I want. I don't have the shit that everyone is shoving down our throats on social media. I don't have that. And so look, this is a call to you guys to start to introduce some ascetic practices. Where in your life right now are you struggling? Are you struggling with lust? Are you struggling with food? Well, I think it's a good idea, if that's the case, to pick up some form of abstinence, of fasting, of putting your phone down. You know, like if you have a day off, I challenge you on your next day off, don't eat till 12 p.m. And on top of that, don't use your phone till 12 p.m. Wake up at 6 or 7, or whenever you wake up, and don't touch your phone and don't eat anything till 12 p.m. Try that. Can you do that? Is that hard for you? If that's hard for you, that's good, right? That lets you know, this is where my opportunity lies. This is where I can grow. This is where I can heal. This is an area of my life that I can grow closer to God, right? Because that lets you know that my phone and the food has been dominating what I've been consumed in. And so look, guys, that's kind of it. But you know, really seriously, ask yourself where you're struggling in life, and know that the spiritual path is always available, right? The spiritual path it's truly what life is about. And that's where people experience the most amount of satisfaction. It's not through the pursuit of money. Although again, I'm not saying don't pursue money. Don't get that. Don't make the assumption just because I say it's joy, you know, the greatest joy isn't found in pursuing money. There is, and there's a reasoning behind pursuing money that I think everyone should take very seriously. But I can't sit here and say that you should pursue money and forget about the spirit, forget about God, forget about the movement towards oneness, the movement towards wholeness, and the movement towards enlightenment and Christ consciousness, right? That's really what we're all heading for. Although we do, you know, enjoy the things in this world, and we do enjoy money, and we do enjoy a nice house and shelter, which, again, not to say you can't enjoy those things, but you have to have them rightly ordered. And when they're rightly ordered, that's when our lives feel better, when we feel more whole, when we feel more complete, and we feel like we're on purpose. How many of you guys feel lost and empty? A lot of it's due to the fact that you can't control your lower nature. You can't control your bad eating habits, your phone habits, right? And so I challenge you guys, right? If it's your next day off, right? Go till 12 p.m. without any food, without using your phone, with no music, right? That's another thing we're so exposed to, is like, at least like me, when I go to my job, right? There's music playing all the time. How can you grow closer to God if you have music playing in your ears 40 hours a week at your job, right? You can't hear anything. You can't hear your inner thoughts. You can't deal with your demons. You can't objectify them, right? You can't process them because you're distracted. Your attention is in music. Your attention is in your phone. Your attention is in all the things outside of yourself. So look, I know it's scary to confront yourself. It's scary to sit there in silence and not do anything and process things that we don't like about ourselves, right? It's hard to process the fact that you could be struggling with pornography. It's hard to deal with the fact that you know, you have narcissistic behaviors. It's hard to deal with the fact that you might just be lazy and be slothful, right? But it's in the experience of us coming face to face with those things we don't like about ourselves, and sitting with them and letting them pass and letting them process and letting them purge and purify us, that we find salvation, that we find spiritual joy and contentment and peace. So anyways, guys, that's it. That's all. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe. If you guys have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them down below. And as always, I will talk to you guys soon. Peace.